Warning, this video is a part 2 to my original review. It is all about the story. I am not holding back on spoilers. So if you want to play the game for yourself and don't want anything to be spoiled, leave the video. But if you don't care, or have played the game already, then we'll continue. Viewer discretion is advised. It was 2006 in Willamette, Colorado.
Population 53,594. Distinguishing characteristics, jack shit.
Oh, and I checked. Willamette does exist, just not in Colorado. The game's plot is a typical modern zombie plot, taking place in a small town in the States, and the main location is something big. A shopping mall. Our main character of the day is Frank West.
I've covered wars, you know.
Yeah, we know. Voiced by TJ Rotolo, he's a photojournalist determined to get the perfect scoop, one that will put his name in the papers. He got a tip about something happening in this town and wanted to check it out. His suspicions were correct when he and the helicopter pilot Ed DeLuca, voiced by Dave Wittenberg, spied the army blocking all the exits out of the city, effectively quarantining the small town. This leads into one of the most effective ways to start up a game I've seen in a while. We go into a camera's perspective and we get to take pictures of what's going on in this town. And needless to say, it's unnerving.
No way! Check that out! Look at all those people! What the hell's happening here?
From a guy who's defending himself on top of a car, a school bus being constantly slammed and no one decides to knock on the door, the gas station explodes, and a woman falls to her death. I mean it when I say this is effective. Not only does it get you started with a small tutorial on how to use the camera, but you get to see everything happening in the safest place in a zombie apocalypse. A helicopter. After collecting enough pictures, Frank enters through the mall's helipad. We then get to meet this guy, who greets us with a very friendly, warm welcome. Next up, we head into the entrance through the security room, where we see a bunch of people barricading the front doors. We also bump into everyone's favorite character as she looks for her dog. She won't be important. We also get to meet this very beautiful looking woman, who is probably not related to the guy we met on the roof. We then talk to another guy who tells us they thought the Black Friday mob came early today, but then it turns out they're not the Black Friday mob and are actually zombies.
What? Did you just say zombies?
So the Black Friday mob was actually there. You just can't tell throughout the crowd. We get to look at the layout of the mall. And honestly, this is amazing. More than once, I was reminded of the one good place in Edmonton, the West Edmonton Mall. But no pool. To get the look, a bunch of Capcom employees went to the States and looked over the grand malls in some cities and modeled the Willamette Mall after them. I'd say they did their research well. Anyway, so we get to hear the others cry about the situation, get the sick idea of using a guy as a blockade for the zombies to eat, and probably my favorite, a bickering couple that get divorced.
Damn it! Every time I come shopping with you, something happens to raise my blood pressure.
What do you mean every time? You don't even come home most nights, let alone take me shopping.
So? I work for a living.
Work? Huh. Is that what you call that hanky-panky with that big-titted secretary now?
Oh, please. What the hell does that have to do with anything?
Listen to you. Every time something goes wrong, you have to raise your voice. I never should have married you.
You want to split up then? Sounds great. I can't wait to see the look on your face when those zombies eat you. It'll be hilarious.
That's my line, Buster.
In the middle of a zombie apocalypse. After harassing an old man, or more like he harasses him, Frank gets to watch as everyone's favorite character tries to take down the barricade to get to her dog, whom the zombies don't seem all that particularly interested in. Anyway, she lets the horde in, they start eating people, the only sane guy other than Frank
What in the hell are you people doing?
yells for everyone to
Run!
Now this is where the game gets you started on dealing with zombies, giving you a pile of items to use on the zombies, as well as a bag of chips lying around. And throughout this whole sequence, you can't save anybody here. I'm guessing this is the game supposed to be guilt-tripping you when you let survivors die, but you're not really going to care when the AI is against you, as well as whining like bitches. After escaping, we get to talk to Brad Garrison, voiced by TJ Storm, who would reappear to voice Josh in Resident Evil 5, Jesse McCartney, voiced by Laura Napoli, not talk to everyone's second favorite character, Otis, and go on with our day of discovering what caused the outbreak while we wait for Ed's helicopter to arrive. So all in all, good start. Throughout the story, Frank travels through the mall, getting the story mostly on his own, since he gets a nasty surprise early on.
Jesse and I are DHS agents. And yes, we are looking for the man in that picture.
You're with Homeland Security. Is that guy a terrorist or something?
That being said, they make an uneasy alliance and work together to not only get out of the situation alive, but also to uncover what really happened here. Brad goes into the field with Frank, and Jessie keeps an eye on the monitors to tell Frank anything she sees she thinks he might find interesting. And tell Otis about them. And as an extra part of their deal, he'll let them on his helicopter that'll be appearing in 3 days. After some encounters with psychopaths and survivors, Frank learns along the way that this outbreak has a lot more to do with these two characters, Carlito and Isabella Keys. Carlito is voiced by Alex Fernandez, and Isabella is voiced by Kim My-Guest, who's been in many things like the Fatal Frame series as Mayu Amakura and Miku Hinasaki. We learn that they have a bone to pick with Americans, as Isabella keeps saying,
"You ruined Santa Cabeza and started all this!"
as well as,
"The zombies were created by you, not us. That's what Carlito wants you all to know."
oh, we'll get there. We also learn a bit more by the man in the picture, now known as Dr. Barnaby, that he was a part of an operation in Santa Cabeza, though apparently this is a drug trade and they were making zombie drugs over there. Though by this point, Frank has already made a deal with Isabella to get an interview with her and her brother Carlito to really explain what's going on. Unfortunately, her brother doesn't seem all that keen into talking and ends up shooting his sister in anger. A little extreme, but I digress. Frank takes her back to the security room, so now everyone gets to hear her side of the story. Now, this is where the story gets into that political charm that George A. Romero movies had. Instead of Santa Cabeza being a drug trade, turns out it was a village in Central America that was being used as a testing bed for mass-producing cattle. And Dr. Barnaby was the head of the research facility. After getting kicked in the face by Frank for not only trying to attack Jesse, but also...
Jesse!
He's starting!
Yeah, earlier he locked himself in one of the stores, but Carlito dragged him out and tied him over a bunch of zombies. Probably got scratched or something. Anyway, in his turning state, he confirms what Isabella was explaining, but adds on Americans consume a lot of meat, thus they were trying to produce a large amount of cattle to keep up with the demands of meat. Unfortunately, they somehow managed to create a virus strain that latched onto a bunch of wasps they were experimenting with, that created, of all things, zombie cows, with the last words of Dr. Barnaby claiming he didn't do anything wrong, finally succumbing to the infection. Isabella goes on to explain the wasps escaped from the lab and turned the whole of Santa Cabeza into basically a breeding ground of zombies instead. The army was called in to cover it up, so that meant a mass genocide on not only the zombies, but also to anyone still living, Carlito, Isabella, and Barnaby being the only survivors of the cover-up. All this over trying to find a way to produce mass cattle. Wow. Brad kills Barnaby in another camera perspective shot. Oh, and I should mention this whole explanation is done in 3 cutscenes, the first one being the longest. So you could say this case was the longest, and most important. We also learned Isabella was a scientist working at the lab facility, which would make sense as to how they managed to get the zombie spread to continue to the States. A few hours later, Carlito invades the intercoms, telling Isabella this was the last resort. He did try apologizing earlier for shooting his sister. Oh, right. Anyway, Isabella explains that this last resort is if he were cornered, he would blow up the mall, releasing the wasps, aka queen larvae, into the atmosphere, pretty much infecting the entire country. The good news is the location of where the bombs are in the maintenance tunnels, or the underground parking lot. Bad news, that has the most zombies in any area of the game. And going through this area is not fun. God, Carlito! I'll give you a tip if you want to make it easy for yourself. Go into the tunnels the first day, go into this lonely hall in the middle of the map here, and grab the maintenance key. You'll have access to the maintenance tunnels through the exits. So Frank and Brad head in the tunnels to collect the bombs and stop Carlito. Once Frank gets the bombs, we watch as Brad, the coolest guy ever, corner Carlito in the same office where you would get the maintenance key. And we get this cool cutscene of them fighting each other off. Sadly, Carlito is the victor, and Brad gets stuck in the hall, filled with zombies.
Well, shit.
After Frank gets the bombs out, he heads back to the halls to check on Brad. This is optional, and you could just meet up with Jesse. But if you do check on him, well, let's just say this is the second cutscene in the game that gets me a little emotional.
Brad? Brad?
Frank! Don't get any closer. Stay away, Frank. Don't get near me.
What's the matter, Brad? Are you hurt? I'm coming over there, Brad. We'll go back together. If you're hurt, we'll patch you up.
I'm screwed. It doesn't hurt. Not even a little. I'm already dead. Frank. Don't tell Jesse about this.
The only thing left to do is put him down. Rest in peace, Brad. You were too cool to live. After that sad moment, Frank returns to Jesse and leaves her in the dark. After coming back, Frank wonders if there were any other plans Carlito had. Well, Isabella doesn't know any more than the bombs. It doesn't surprise her if he was hiding things. But now that the bombs have been taken out, Isabella and Frank head to her and her brother's hideout. It was just near the gun store. Oh yeah, that's the only psychopath boss that Otis doesn't tell you about, so you kinda have to get lucky to even see him. He appears for the first day and will still be there on the 21st, which is the third day at 12 a.m. Anyway, they get to the hideout, which is now the third place other than the security room and the bathrooms to save at. Unfortunately, she can't log into his computer without the password, but there was no time to think about it as Jesse calls for Frank to the security room. Turns out she spotted someone being dragged by a large man. Said man being dragged looks like Carlito. To be fair, the maintenance tunnels are filled to the brim with zombies, and the room he locked himself in doesn't actually go anywhere, so he probably got surprised by the man. Jesse then explains that the large man dragging Carlito was heading to the butcher shop in the maintenance tunnels under the mall. Christ, this is going to be a pain. With that information, Frank heads to the 9th reign of hell that are the maintenance tunnels and into the butcher shop. There we meet... No comment. After killing the poor guy, we get to hear Carlito venting to Frank. And while Frank will tell the story and reveal the corruption of the government, he makes it clear he does not care about Carlito in the slightest. It also helps that even after near death, Carlito just laughs and compares Americans with zombies.
zombies great? I mean, all they do is eat and eat and eat, growing in number. Just like you good red, white, and blue Americans.
After some interrogating, Frank learns nothing. All he gets from Carlito is an apology to Isabella and his necklace. Then he dies. Rest in peace, Carlito. Oh, who am I kidding? Roast in hell, you ass! And here we are. The facts. The facts will only appear if you make it through each case, and this is where the story gets intense. Frank returns to Isabella with the news that her brother is now dead. And gives her his necklace. He tells her that he cared about his sister more than anything else. And I feel like he was only saying that to make her feel better. Seriously, that guy killed 50,000 people and shot his sister. I don't believe it, but whatever. And it turns out it wasn't just a necklace, but a locket. And it had a picture of the Keyes family. It brought Isabella to tears, with her saying,
Pachamama.
Earlier, when the professor was being dangled above a bunch of zombies, Carlito also said this. Isabella came to the realization that maybe the password was what their parents used to say. Pachamama, meaning Mother Earth. Turns out she's right, and she gets to turn off the jammy device, which actually stalled DHS help. Well, that's good. After turning it off, Jesse's ecstatic about this and immediately calls for HQ. But once you leave the hideout...
Frank, it's over. HQ's decided to ignore us.
What? What do you mean, ignore us?
I contacted headquarters, but the government has decided to deny all knowledge of what happened here. Special forces will arrive for cleanup at midnight. They'll take everyone out. Zombies, people, everyone.
After that bleak information, Jessie turns off the receiver and sits at the corner of the sofa. All by herself for no comfort. Frank's not there. Brad's dead. Barnaby's corpse is lying right next to her. She's all alone now. Did I mention this story is dark? And it keeps getting better from there. As you continue your way to the security room, we slowly get to see the outcome. 2 Special Forces operatives are there to drag Jessie back to HQ and tell her if she keeps her mouth shut about everything that has happened, then she'll probably be released from custody. And then this happens. During that attack from Barnaby, he must have bitten her in some way since Isabella couldn't tell if she had gotten infected. Well, she got infected and kinda went out with a bang. Frank is just outside of the vent and calls in Jessie one more time, but only gets static back. Of course, once he enters the room, he sees 2 dead soldiers in front of him and Jessie's glasses on the sofa. Cluing in as another addition to The Walking Dead. No choice but to put her down too. Rest in peace, Jessie. You didn't do much, huh? I still enjoyed your company. And this was sad, so I'll miss you. You can also find a note from Otis, who tells you that he managed to get all of the survivors out by hijacking a helicopter. You get 1 point, Otis, but I still didn't like your attitude. At around 12 a.m., the special forces will appear and start shooting up zombies. Sad part is, this is one of the few times where the army is useful against an apocalypse. Even worse, this is where the game gets hard. Oh yeah, it wasn't hard before? Well, now it is. Is that one of them? Oh god, it is! Remember in the last video when I brought up the Tricult and that you should shoot them instead of attacking them up close? Well, this is where you do the opposite with the special forces. You have to get up close to them if you want to get rid of them. Make sure to have your small chainsaw with you. It'll make it easier. They'll be here from 12 a.m. to 10 a.m., so if you want to survive, I suggest heading to the hideout and wait there. Sure, it will be a while, but it's better than getting caught if you do lose to them. They strip you of your weapons and clothes. Seriously, what's with the clothes? But this time you have to struggle your way out, and if you get caught by them, they bust your ass and take up more time. Once it's 10 a.m., the special forces leave, and you have to talk to Isabella before you head on over to the helipad. Because if you don't, then you get one of the endings instead of the true ending. But after that, you head to the helipad before 12 p.m. because you'll miss the helicopter if you do. Walking through the mall is quite eerie when you see the zombie corpses and no living survivor in sight. When you make it there, Ed will be waiting for you.
Well, I'll be damned. He's still alive. That son of a bitch made it. That must mean he got his scoop. I can't wait to get my share of the take. Woo! Yeah! All right. You just hang tight, buddy. I'm on my way. Huh?
Hey! 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 I'm over here!
I see you, buddy! I see you! Yeah! I'm on my way! Yeah! Yeah, you
And
did
then
it!
this
You
happens.
did it! Yeah, yeah!
Yet, it's not over. Overtime mode becomes available if you get ending A. It continues the story, so the downer ending is the true ending. Harsh. A zombie walks up to Frank and nearly bites a chunk off if it weren't for Isabella. Isabella saves Frank from getting bitten and drags his unconscious self to the hideout. Frank wakes up sometime later, learning that he collapsed suddenly. Isabella a lot tougher than we thought before, and
You must have gotten yourself infected somehow.
okay. Wow, this was very. Yeah, I don't know how this happened either. Anyway, so we find out Frank's been wearing some plot armor and it finally came off. And now we only have 24 hours before Frank becomes another member of the Walking Dead. Thankfully, Isabella has an idea on how Frank could stay human with a cure. And since we only have 24 hours, we don't have much time. By the way, that's 2 hours real time. Good luck! First, Isabella sends Frank out to get items that you put together on a shopping list, but he could take for free. And later, it'll be queens. And yes, the answer to finding queens are easy. Remember when Ed's helicopter crashed? Well, it landed right into the clock tower that was secretly holding more zombies! Is that an underground tunnel? Anyway, because of this, the zombies managed to find their way back into the mall. Again. After coming back with 10 queens, Isabella administers a vaccine for Frank and will not be important for later installments. During all of this, the duo finds out that Carlito had even more things planned out than he originally implied. Turns out he infected 50 orphans in his and Isabella's lab, and yet surprisingly is not in every state, just the heavily populated ones. Wait a minute. With this harrowing news that not even Isabella knew about, they realize they have to escape if they want this news to get out of the public and truly put a stop to Carlito's plans. But the army still has quarantined the town, and let's be honest, when Otis hijacked that helicopter, he could pilot that thing. But Frank and Isabella? Who knows? Maybe Isabella could, but it's better if they don't risk the army catching up to them. Thankfully, Frank investigated the clock tower earlier, so there's a way out after all. Though those legions of zombies pretty much blanketing the ground would make it hard to traverse. So Isabella comes up with a plan. Create a pheromone that the zombies will hate, or in Frank's words,
Anti-zombie perfume.
and traverse the tunnels. Though it's a small dose, so it will only work for so long. Isabella could carry it, but Frank will be left to deal with the zombies himself once the pheromone starts to wear off. Once they make it to the other side, they hijack a Humvee with a machine gun in the back and try to drive off into the sunset. Unaware that they have one more obstacle to face. The man that represents the worst in humanity, a large tank. Just kidding, we got one more obstacle, and it's a general. The tank topples their Humvee over, leaving Isabella unconscious, and Frank stumbling out to meet the tank operator. Ladies and gentlemen, the true final boss of the game, Brock Mason. He was behind the genocide of Santa Cabeza, as he wanted an excuse to kill as many people as possible, both dead and alive. Calling it a mission that was for the right of the country, which of course Frank doesn't take for a second. After getting distracted by the tank moving its turret to the zombies, Frank takes this opportunity to fight him one-on-one. Once Frank defeats Brock, a faint smile appears on his face as he falls over and gets eaten and torn apart by the zombies. Creepy. The zombies have cornered Isabella by the Humvee, while Frank, having to go through so much through this outbreak, lets out a loud scream to the skies as the story ends. Almost. After Isabella and Frank escape, we get an epilogue of them finally getting the information out to the public, which caused worldwide outcry and demand for the United States government to own up and answer. While they did admit responsibility for the Santa Cabeza incident, the government completely denied any responsibility for the Willamette outbreak and blamed it on a terrorist attack. To be fair, it was a terrorist attack, but it was still in response to Santa Cabeza's destruction, so they're still at fault. But soon the world let the Willamette situation fade from their minds. This definitely wouldn't happen in real life, but this isn't real life, so let's go with it. Oh, and Carlito's plan with the orphans has been ditched and it will never come back as an important plot point. The epilogue concludes with, and yet he complained that his belly was not full. It came from a nursery rhyme, by the way. It's about a boy who wouldn't stop eating and curbed his hunger towards humans. So we can assume this is implying Frank's still infected and will turn into a zombie in later years, and we will never see Frank again. I'm just kidding. He wouldn't stop showing up if he could help it. But that whole zombie thing won't happen. I guarantee that. Yep, never happened. So to put it quickly, one of my favorite parts is the story itself. I love it when a game does more than just be about the gameplay. And it's pretty easy to drop the ball when trying to balancing the two. Would you do gameplay or would you do the story? I feel like I should discuss this in its own video. Anyway, this game balances both. The gameplay is fun, the story is grounded despite the over-the-top gameplay, and I enjoy it all for what they are. And that's my full review of Dead Rising. Remember, this counts as part 2 of the last one, but I didn't have enough room to add it in. Sorry it took that long, but it was a mix of procrastination and constantly editing things. A bad mix to have. But now that I'm done, time to look for other games. Jesus Christ, finally. See y'all next time.
Not in a million years. No way. Not in a million years.
Just leave it to me.
Get it. Not a chance.
Okay.
No way!
Damn it.
No way!
You can't be.
That's better.